A little over 4 months ago, I made a ranking of Breath of the Wild regions based on how good they'd be as vacation destinations. That video did surprisingly well, and I decided to make a follow-up for Zelda month. If you haven't seen the last video, don't worry, this one can be watched independently of it. I was initially worried about there not being enough of a difference between games to warrant a second video, but with there being many new factors in each region, and regional borders being different, I believe this video is worth making. I also want to thank anyone who commented on the last video with their opinions, as I took some of what was said into account when ranking regions this time. Last thing before we get started, with the Great Skylands and the Depths behaving differently in terms of the map, I've decided to treat each as its own region, upping the total regions from 15 to 17. Now, without further ado. The Gerudo Highlands have not changed much from the last game. They are still cold and have no place for shelter. The biggest change is that there are now caves, which is the case in every region. There are also the geoglyphs, but the ones in this region are best viewed from the neighboring region of the Gerudo Desert. The depths are the largest area we're going to be talking about today. It is similar in scale to the surface, so why isn't it higher on the list? Well, the dangerous substance, gloom, is all around the place. The monsters are covered in gloom, the whole area is covered in darkness at the start of the game, and the Yiga clan have set up multiple camps in the area. The area does have some positives, with the Bargainer statues, ancient mines, and a consistent 76 degrees Fahrenheit in most places. Yet, the only people you will find here are the Yiga clan, researchers, and Zonai constructs. The Great Skylands involve a hot air balloon trip up. We're just gonna pretend that worked. But once up there, there isn't much to do. There are Zonai constructs that can speak to you, and you can stay in the Temple of Time for shelter. But would you take a hot air balloon trip up to a floating skyland just to go camping there? Not me, I'm afraid of heights. I received a comment on my last video that said I was too harsh on Hebra. Well, I'm not this time, as the Hebra Mountains are now mostly in the Tabantha region. Now you can't even claim that this region is the best to shield surf in. You can still hunt here, and there's a great fairy fountain. But one of the many things that appealed about this region was taken from it in this game. Luckily, the monsters seem nicer here. Hyrule Forest has improved slightly since Breath of the Wild. This is due to the darkness having been lifted from the Typhlo ruins. However, it is still too difficult for the average person to visit the Lost Woods. With aspects of this region being inaccessible, I cannot justify ranking it any higher. Faron used to, and still can, have two places to stay. The stable at the west side of the bridge, and Luerland Village. However, Luerland was destroyed by monsters at the start of the game. You can drive them out and rebuild the village, but many villagers left the town to find new beginnings elsewhere. Even if the town is rebuilt, how safe can it be seen if it was so recently destroyed? The Gerudo Desert has always had an issue with sandstorms, but in Tears of the Kingdom, it is the worst we have ever seen it. During the game's events, Gerudo Town is damaged by the storm in Gibdo, and the town is evacuated to the shelter beneath. This town's laws are still in place, as nearly no men can enter the town upon its repair, and almost none are allowed in the shelter while the storm is raging. When I last mentioned Lanayru, I said it was dependent on when you went to see it. That is still true, but in a different way. While the conditions aren't as dangerous, sludge falling from the sky, and the condition that such sludge leaves the keen in, say that it still isn't safe. Though the buildings are beautiful, they aren't when covered in sludge. Tabantha is dependent on when you visit, but only partially this time. The snowstorm early on would greatly inhibit your ability to do, well, anything. And once over, the snow only melts in Rito Village. Another issue is that the stable has shut down and a newspaper has taken over the building. Combine this with the bridge to Rito Village being destroyed, and you can understand how this becomes a huge problem. On the bright side, There's much more to do in this region, with the Hebra Mountains being located here. Shield surfing, hunting, and seeing the Leviathan bones are all things you can do now. As with the previous regions mentioned, Eldin is dependent on when you visit. On the plus side, it has shockingly cooled down, and many lava pools have dried up. You no longer need elixirs or armors to get to Goron City, and the only place on the surface where such armor is necessary is within the caves in the region. The new issue is that many Gorons are stoned on marbled rock rust. But I've been to Colorado a few times, so that isn't really a problem for me. The marbled rock roast and its effects dissipate after the events of the story too, if it is a problem for you. This region is great for mining gemstones and relaxing in hot springs as well, but remember to be careful in caves. Lake Hylia is one of a few regions that have a similar aesthetic. Looking back at my last video, I did perhaps take aesthetics too much into account and ranked regions higher if they were more visually unique than I should have. In Lake Hylia's case though, I think that it was fine. The main things to see here are Lake Hylia, some Zonai ruins, and one of the larger sky islands later in the game. There is a stable to stay at, but the horse god can no longer be found in this region. Perhaps the most impactful comment from my last video involved Hyrule Ridge. This comment mentioned how Sanadin Park, Thundra Plateau, and Satori Mountain were all located here. While Satori Mountain and Sanadin are no longer within this region's borders, there are other things that this commenter left out. One such place is the Breach of Demise. These are all great places for either horseback riding or hiking. The Great Plateaus had its regional borders expanded from the plateau itself to include the surrounding area. This means that the nearby stable, the Colosseum, and Satori Mountain are now included in the region. It is now much easier to get onto the plateau as well, with the side being able to be destroyed to allow a walkway at the cost of draining a lake. The real downside is that an old cabin has been made into a Yiga base. It is still a great place to camp, but is much more dangerous now. Akla is a region that has changed quite little. The biggest improvement is that Terrytown didn't even exist at the start of Breath of the Wild, and now it is a thriving community. When the main side adventure hears that Hudson's daughter needs to head to Gerudo Town, it is a sign that things are relatively peaceful compared to the rest of the kingdom. The biggest issue is that the Yiga have turned an ancient tech lab into a base. It was actually the highest ranked region in my last video, which only goes to say how much the next regions have improved in my eyes. Central Hyrule was previously too dangerous to recommend, but with the Guardians being gone and Lookout Landing being founded to start rebuilding the kingdom, this region is now one of the best to visit. Neither malice nor gloom impacts the Castletown ruins if you want to see them, but the castle has been lifted into the sky. You can take a hot air balloon up there, but it is still swarming with monsters and covered in gloom, so be prepared if you do. Overall, this region has not been this accessible in 100 years, so take advantage of it while you can. Next we have the Dueling Peaks region. The Dueling Peaks themselves are a sight to behold, and Kakariko is still an incredibly cultural town, but with the rain ruins that fell from the sky, there is a new tourist attraction in the town. The main structure is unavailable to be explored for safety reasons, but the other rain ruins can be. Another downside early on is that the clothing shop is experiencing price gouging, as the owner is struggling to pay for her mother's treatment from coming into contact with gloom. Once her mother has recovered, prices will return to normal. Honestly though, do you even want to get clothes as a souvenir if the rain ruins aren't on a t-shirt? The only other thing preventing this region from being number 1 is that the rain ruins have destroyed a building and it is unclear how structurally sound they are at the moment. The Hateno region has Lanayru Mountain to shield surf at, beaches, an ancient tech lab, and Hateno Village, which has gone through some changes since we last saw it. With the fashion designer Cece living in the town has seen a rise in the fashion industry. I don't understand fashion myself, but if it's your thing, then this is the place to go. Her style has also impacted the local art scene. One small warning though, there is a mayoral election happening at the moment, so if you'd rather avoid political discussions, maybe stay away. On the plus side, they invented pizza here. That alone makes it worth coming here despite the election. Now that I've ranked Hyrule twice, I think I've earned a vacation. Let me pull up my game library to see where I can go.